Welcome to our podcast. For over 50 years, Hartford Family Institute has been Connecticut's premier psychotherapy institute, offering a certificate program for psychotherapists and healers and a certificate program for all others who would like to use this unique therapeutic modality for their personal and professional lives.
Hello, everyone. I am sitting here with Stuart Alpert, Donna Baker-Gilroy, and David Gilroy, who are the partners at the Hartford Family Institute in West Hartford, Connecticut. Today, we are going to discuss a topic called supports, and we are going to define what supports are, why they matter, and why is this topic so very important in the healing journey. So I want to invite any of you to respond to the question, what are supports?
It's a wonderful question.
Go ahead.
As children, we are either supported and loved and cherished, or we are surrounded with all kinds of negative anti-life energies. To the degree that we are surrounded by anti-life energies, we are deeply impacted in our brain and our nervous system, in every cell of our body, and we develop a way of organizing ourselves to protect ourselves. The nature of the way we protect ourselves with anti-life energy that has surrounded us growing up is that we create a way of supporting ourselves that has tension in our body, elements of frozenness, depression, collapse, places where we feel formless. And these are the way we support ourselves as a way of surviving.
I would say also that all life force moves towards safety in order to survive. And if we don't have the safety we need, what Stuart is referring to are the supports we develop. Because in order to survive, we have to feel as safe as possible, even if there is no safety.
So in any given moment, as we're going through our lives, we're in a moment of having support for the aliveness inside of us, if things feel safe enough. And if things don't feel safe enough, we're supporting ourselves in making sure we're not feeling too alive. Because once upon a time, that might not have been a safe thing to do.
And the fact that we're all alive and functioning. We are heroes in our own life.
So what I have just heard gives me like 20 more questions I want to ask you.
Oh, good.
So, Stuart, you mentioned that we organize ourselves. And what do you mean we organize ourselves to protect ourselves?
If I scream at you right now, you might have an instantaneous feeling of some kind of shock state if you're not expecting it. If growing up, a child is screamed at as an example, they organize into a shock state and become frozen in their bodies. That's the impact. But the frozenness as they grow up also becomes the way they protect themselves. And the frozenness in their body also creates a belief system that it's not safe to become alive. It's not safe to fully be conscious. It's not safe to fully feel the ground. It may not feel safe to have any connection to a higher level of consciousness and spirit. So it creates this belief system that we need to contain ourselves and hold ourselves out of life.
So am I hearing you say that being in a shock state is a form of support?
It's both the impact of the abuse and support.
Ah. So if I find myself in my own life in a state of shock or a state of frozenness, that might give me a clue as to the assault that I endured as a child.
If you have enough consciousness to be aware of that.
Yeah, the trouble is, those of us who were screamed at on enough of a regular basis went into a shock statement. We froze. We stopped talking. We stopped putting ourselves forward in any situation in life. And we do what's called dissociate. We leave our own body. And when that happens enough, we stop being conscious of what's going on inside of us. So we might not know.
So we can go into a state of defensiveness, and our own state of defensiveness prevents us from being aware that we're in a state of defensiveness.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not defensive.
For many of us, we don't have a clue that this is how we're organized until we're in therapy. I can use myself as an example. I had a lot of dissociation. I did not know that. I was just going through life thinking everything was fine. And luckily, I ended up in therapy, and little by little, with enough safety, I discovered the ways that I had learned to how I had dissociated and what the tension patterns were in my body, and also learning that those were supports.
And we have a belief system. And the belief system might be, if I open my heart, I'm going to be killed. If I open my heart, I'm going to be humiliated. If I open my heart, I'm going to be abandoned. And the interesting thing about that's already what has happened as a child. You have been humiliated. You have been abandoned. And some level, you have been killed emotionally. And so you're living what's in the past. But the way the brain works, we feel it as if it's true in the present. And so we also agonize about the future. If I do this in the future, this is what's going to happen. And that prevents us from living in the present.
I think it's important also to mention that it isn't about blaming our parents, because this is energies that are passed down, and most often parents were doing the very best that they could do.
This all raises a question, at least for me. If I'm happily unconscious and I have no awareness that I walk through the world telegraphing to everybody else that I'm scared, why would I want to know about that?
Hence the statement, ignorance is bliss.
Exactly. And there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is, in the way we support ourselves, we've learned to say no to ourselves because we didn't have the support and the encouragement to have a no as a boundary, as a flexible boundary of saying, this feels good, this doesn't feel good. So we wind up saying no to ourselves. And the more we say no to ourselves, the more we're stuck in an impasse, unable to shift and change how we are. And so we wind up living as a victim rather than living as the victim that we were.
And we might have an internal sense of frustration in general in life. And that's why we might want to start to know more about what's going on inside of me.
So I've heard several examples of supports. freezing, organizing our bodies in a defensive way, saying no to ourselves, dissociating. These don't sound really kind of like, when I think of support, I kind of want to think of something that's more positive. Is there, are there things such as positive supports?
Absolutely.
I hesitate to label them positive or negative,
Okay.
because when you are in the position of being a little kid and you're feeling, well, you might not be feeling it, but it may be true that it's not safe. I don't know how I got into where I am now. I need help to get out of there.
Well, what I was saying about in response to the question, are there positive supports? For many of us, we might have had a pet. We might have had a particular teacher who really tuned into who we are. We might have other relatives.
A blankie,
A
a stuffed animal.
Yes, I have a daughter who brought her binding from her blanket with her to kindergarten. That was her support. And so there are many things such as that, things in nature.
So go ahead.
Anything that's about our aliveness, like I was saying earlier, if we feel safe enough, we're going to start to feel more alive.
Rather than positive and negative, there are positive supports and defensive supports.
Okay.
Yeah.
So positive, life-giving, supporting our aliveness.
Yes.
Right. So all those things that were just mentioned would be those kind of supports. Having a blanket.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite toy?
Having friends.
Friends sounds like a
Yeah.
wonderful support.
I guess the granddaddy of all, or grandmother of all supports for aliveness would be love.
And love allows us to feel every experience and every emotion that we feel simply as a wave of experience rather than as a problem. And there's a wonderful statement that is, the only problems we have are the way we feel about the way we feel. Feelings are not issues. Feelings are not a problem. Emotions are not a problem. The way we feel about our emotions cause the issues and the problems we have.
And it's to be said also that some of the supports we have are not healthy supports, such as smoking or alcohol, any kind of
So our substance.
any kind of substance that's not good for our body, but it still might be something we reach for as a support when healthy supports were not available to us.
So would you put all addictions in
Yes,
that category?
Yes.
sure.
Often as a way to numb our feelings and numb our aliveness, so we don't have to feel like we're stepping into being more of a target.
And the same thing is true of food addictions.
Food, sex, buying things,
Work.
Yeah.
work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And again, that's all a movement towards feeling as safe as we could possibly feel and trying to get what we need, which are basically all substitutes for that word love.
I want to say something I know could be edited out. And even developing podcasts.
I want to thank all of you for tuning in today. I want to invite you all to comment below if you have any questions or reactions or requests. If there's anything that you'd like to hear us discuss, please let us know and we'll be happy to consider it. Thank you, and back to the show. So I have another question. Doesn't everyone already support themselves in a healthy way?
No.
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 Not in our culture. I've read about some cultures that it seems anyways from a distance that there's tremendous support for aliveness. There's tremendous love in the community for everybody. No matter who you are, no matter what your sexuality is, you get to feel like you belong. Not so much in our culture.
Well, I am very aware that in our culture, consumerism is of particular interest.
Consumerism, performance, money, that isn't connected to aliveness, but to some form of pressure to succeed and move ahead rather than be with ourselves and honor ourselves and all the experiences we have in our body and our heart. So often being open-hearted is seen as weakness.
Yeah.
What I'm monitoring is getting into a political discussion right now about woke.
Woke is a support. I'll say it.
Suppose a person finds themselves inundated with supports that are not life supporting. I find myself stuck in addiction. I find myself sitting with a beer in front of my TV when I'm not working. I come home and I start drinking, and then I go to bed and I get up the next day, I do it again. And I'm not living. I don't look forward to the next day. I'm existing. How would one think about dealing with that conundrum?
I started thinking about an old song, I think it was by Peggy Lee. Is this all there is? Yeah. Yeah. Some of us, certainly me included, hit a place in our life where we started having that question inside of ourselves. And I'm still not quite sure why I went in the direction I did, but I started going in the direction of looking inside at what was going on. And end of thought for now.
Yeah, I could add to that. For me, there was a feeling of something was wrong. I knew something was wrong. I didn't have a clue what was wrong. And I saw a friend whose life was improving, and I asked her, what are you doing? Her name was Marie. And Marie, what? And she was in therapy. It's the first person I knew who was in therapy. And I said, tell me where you're in therapy, because I would like my life to improve the way yours is.
I'll have what she's had.
I want, yes. Exactly. So I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what. In fact, I had so denied everything that was difficult that I experienced that I thought, well, it's frivolous of me to go to therapy because I really didn't have any problems, because that was the level of denial.
Yeah. Paul, fundamentally, the essence of who all of us are is consciousness. So the moment we bring consciousness to any experience, the nature of consciousness is acceptance. So we don't have to be in our mind saying, I need to bring acceptance to myself. I simply need to grow my consciousness. And the moment consciousness touches any experience, transformation happens immediately. And that's what our therapy is about. One of the things I like in our therapy too is going to a consciousness gym and growing our consciousness and developing consciousness muscles so that we can allow ourselves to be conscious of every experience that we have. And in that way, there's a constant sense of transformation, and that all the ways that we have an aversion for consciousness or resistance to consciousness are simply a way of our own spirit bringing to the foreground that part of us that still needs healing.
So I want to grow my consciousness to get out of my out of the doldrums.
Yes.
I want to become aware of how I am defending myself with my behavior.
So I have a simple solution. And one of the things that I often say to my clients, it's very simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. All you have to do is bring consciousness, let's say, to depression or boredom, and just allow consciousness to touch boredom or depression. And the moment that happens, there's going to be a shift. And yet, we live in an old identity that's based on childhood experience and childhood trauma. And what's difficult is letting go of that identity and taking on a new identity of aliveness, exuberance, heart, feeling grounded, connected to the earth and to spirit.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the solution isn't to simply deny the supports that I'm using. The solution is to allow a transformation to occur inside of me with consciousness and awareness being the catalyst.
Yeah. Yes, and to appreciate that the supports we developed make sense in terms of what we survived as children. So that we're not fighting ourselves to be better than we are, because we're all perfect in the way we are, given what we had to survive.
So basically, it's about learning to love ourselves.
Yes.
And this takes blame out of the healing process.
Yeah.
If somebody comes and they're addicted to something, this has been tried many times before, it never works. Blaming that person has never helped the healing process. But if I can do what Stuart was just talking about, I can be there as a therapist with the person, helping them kind of renegotiate their own relationship to themselves.
Beautiful. I'll often give an experiment with the clients. Say, look in the mirror. And say to the person you're seeing in the mirror, I love you. And see what that touches in you. And so often, what it touches is I don't like that person I'm seeing in the mirror. I'm disgusted with that person in the mirror. He doesn't deserve it.
Mm.
And that's all the energies that you absorbed growing up. So you're taking that in, and now you're treating yourself as if you are that negative parent that you had. I also often invite people to write a love letter to themselves.
And become aware of how they feel as they're doing it.
Yes. And writing a love letter to yourself doesn't necessarily, what it means is I love all parts of you. And I understand all parts of you. And that all parts of you make sense.
How does this feel to everyone in terms of completeness? Is there more that you want to say regarding supports?
We don't give up an old support just by letting go of it. Sounds like a good idea. But we need new kind of supports that support wherever we are, that meet us where we are, before we can let go of an old support. So those old kind of supports, those kinds, like say I learned how to frighten myself in order to keep myself small so that I wasn't noticed and then blamed for everything. I read about this someplace. I don't know where this is coming from. Okay. Somebody else got to come in.
We can't survive as children without our parents and our caretakers. And even if our caretakers were mostly negative in terms of our aliveness, we still hold a connection to those parents, which we call, we need a connection to bonding. And bad bonding is better than no bonding at all. So to take in new supports, which is a big, big thing, when I say it's simple but difficult, is it means saying goodbye emotionally to our parents that we bonded with. And it could often feel like I'm going to die. And what's really going to die is an old way of being, an old structure that we've developed. But it feels real. It feels like we really are going to die, or we're going to dissolve, we're going to disappear. But what's going to disappear is the old structure that we've developed, the old bonding energies, and the ability to say goodbye to our parents. Not that we have to never see them again, but emotionally, we need to feel like I'm separate. I see my parents for who they are, and that's about them, and it's not about me.
There's also the thought, and it's been part of my experience, that when we develop new supports, we're also helping to heal our ancestors and the generations that come after us. So healing goes in both directions.
So what I'm hearing is, from a therapist's point of view, I want to encourage my client to find ways in which to love themselves, which is life-giving in nature, so that they can replace unhealthy supports with healthy ones.
Yes, and in that process, because developmentally no comes before yes, it's first to become aware of the ways we don't love ourselves. And having that, we can work from there, because many of us don't know how we treat ourselves in a way that isn't loving. So if we become conscious of that, we can take steps to move towards a more loving connection.
Yeah, what you're saying, Donna, really touches me. And remembering what Thich Nhat Hanh said. And for those of you who don't know Thich Nhat Hanh, he's a very, very famous Vietnamese Buddhist monk. And he said, to be in our heart, we have to accept all our non-heart elements.
Yeah.
Because if we don't accept the non-heart elements, then we're pressuring ourselves to be in our hearts. And the more we pressure ourselves, the more we activate what we call the old victimizing energies, the old negative energies that we grew up with. Pressure begets pressure.
Right.
Did I hear that in the Bible?
I think it's in Genesis.
I think that's where the body connection comes in, because we can't just tell ourselves to do it differently. We have to experience something in order to make change. Change happens on the body level. And so it's important to have the consciousness and then build and have the body experience. So when what we're calling aliveness, for example, some people may not even know what that means. And so it's an experience of feeling that we are connected to our whole body, not just our consciousness. And feeling our connection to the earth as well.
Yeah, it's a flow of energy that's in our body. It's a feeling of integration in our body, rather than just living in our head and trying to figure things out in our minds.
I feel we could go on for hours
I know.
on this.
Yeah, it's such a basic, important concept. It's what everything is based on, really.
It feels like we are preparing for another episode. So with Stuart?
No, what I'm aware of is all of us have been in the process of the nature of support we're bringing to ourselves in talking about this issue. And are we just in our mind? Are we really feeling our body and our sense of our heart? Are we feeling a connection to the ground? How much are we really living inside of ourselves? That's an issue that the four of us have had in coming here today.
Mm. So I want to thank everyone for listening. I forgot to introduce myself at the outset. My name is Paul Garcia Lambert.
Oh. Let me say who?
And I did introduce you. I will remind everyone, I'm with Stuart Albert, I am with Donna Baker-Gilroy, and I am with David Gilroy, who are the partners at the Hartford Family Institute. And thank you again for listening.
I'm in what Tina was saying. I feel in a positive sense, the differences in our energies. And I feel like I can't give a word to use.
We should have this.
Of a level of consciousness, and you have a level of embodiment. You know, you're more, feels like you're more back your guts and your body experiences. You're denser than I am. I mean that in a positive sense.
I'm feeling very touched. That's how you see me. It's always worth getting in a fight with you.
And if it's in it.
What were you doing in my drink?
Can't anybody have any privacy around here? Oh my God.